Welcome to Let's Talk Impact. Tonight we're talking about flock cameras, what they collect, how law enforcement uses them, and where we draw the line between public safety and surveillance. Joining me tonight are Chris Heintzelman and Chancellor Van Houten, Officer Van Houten with the Beaumont Police Department. Thank you both for being here. So we're just going to jump right into it. I want to start with the basics. What are flock cameras and what exactly do they collect?
All right, well, let's jump in it. Uh, so they're not live feeding cameras. They're automatic license plate readers. So they're taking pictures, photographs, screenshots, if you will, of license plates that are passing the camera. That is essentially what they are.
Okay.
I'm I'm gonna argue with you there. We have videos on YouTube of people getting into those cameras and getting live feeds. They're not secured. Not only are there live feeds, the videos are recorded and fed into AI systems that Flock owns, Nova and Freeform being two of them, which they allow people to search using AI prompts. But
I
they are
And
live.
I'll just back it up by saying I'm not a flock expert. I do know a decent amount. I just know what I've experienced at Beaumont. That's all I can really talk
right.
about.
Well, and so before we go further, I do kind of want to touch on that what Chris was saying and what you were saying. I think like a lot of things what the community in general is asking because what we see a lot of times with leadership and I know you're not, an elected official, but we see with leadership is given um, a plan, a promise, whatever. Here we're going to lay out what we plan to do with this. So Flock would do that, industry would do that. Whoever's coming into an area speaks to elected officials in that area and says, "This is what we plan to do." And I know that with when you are in the trenches as an officer or someone who has to work with that, you're given directives on how to do it. The question I think what we're seeing with the community is what's being promised to our leadership that our leadership is signing us up for. Is that what we're seeing? So I do think that's going to be some of the content for today's episode. Is there is there's a function that officers and law enforcement are going to adhere to with these flock cameras, but then there's questions that I think we're going to be asking that are community based that we kind of want our elected leadership to hear. So that's kind of what we're doing here is getting the message out on what we want people to know about flock cameras, what the point is, what they're doing, what officers are doing. And then we want people to be
Your mic,
informed
your
enough to be
mic
able
is
to ask
cutting in and
questions.
out. I'm only
Oh, I'm
getting like
sorry.
the other word.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move past that anyway, just kind of setting the stage for what we're doing today. So you've kind of told us what flock cameras are. And Chris, you've told us some things that you've seen. So you said, Beaumont. So let's talk about locally. Where are they being used in Southeast Texas and who is making those decisions? Were you able to hear me? I'm not sure you can hear me. Can you hear me, Chris?
I can hear you.
All right. Can you hear me, officer? I'm not sure you can hear me. Okay, so let's talk about that. Where we're
If,
seeing them in Southeast Texas.
if I could back up to sort of bridge the two questions,
Yes, yes.
there are multiple kinds of flock cameras. There are they name them after birds. So there's falcon cameras, raven cameras, condor cameras. I think raven is the most
I can
basic.
tell you we have. Yeah, the mic cuts in and out.
Yeah, I think your mic it's cutting in and out. I can hear it when you talk.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
I'm gonna jump out, jump back in. Maybe we all do that. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead. Say what you
Right.
were
So
saying.
the cameras that you typically see around town appear to be raven cameras, possibly falcon cameras. I don't know specifically what Beaumont has. Condor cameras are look different because they have a camera that can rotate and change angles, which they use to follow people and cars too. But they have AI in them that will follow people as people walk around in front of them. And typically, those have a white plastic case as opposed to the black plastic frame that you usually see on the side of the road. So the Condor ones tend to look like other security cameras that you'll see around. Um, I know when I looked at the paperwork for Beaumont, there was mostly I guess, typical cameras, but they called out long range cameras. So I guess they're trying to capture images from long distances on a highway or something. I don't know. But I know there's at least those two kinds. Um, and they have upgrade packs. So hackers have gone and found there will be a camera, but there'll be additional things attached to it that appear to be sensors for picking up Bluetooth and radio. And like they can tell not just your car, but is your phone in the car. And I think they can get like the tire pressure sensor gauges, use Bluetooth to talk to the CAN bus or something in the car. So there's additional capabilities that they're adding all the time.
What's concerning to me is specifically about that is, we have issues with safety. I mean, I don't think anybody would complain about finding criminals, right? That's not the issue. But, we talk, the quote by Benjamin Franklin, those who would give up liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. One of the things that as citizens in America, we've often talked about, and we see this all the time with 1984 and different, different books that we've talked about, um, especially in our current political climate. When there is an issue of safety or public health or public welfare, we know that there's going to be issues that we all might have to adjust to, right? But
Mhm.
where is the line? Where is the line, and what is government's responsibility when it comes to? We're glad you're back. I hope you can hear us now. What is government's responsibility when it comes to ensuring that we are fighting crime or solving crime or protecting the general public from criminal activity, and also protecting the freedom to assemble, your rights under the First Amendment, all of those freedoms and liberties that we have that are protected under the Constitution? Are we seeing a conflict with flock cameras in that specific range?
I'm going to say there's a couple different topics here to talk about that we could separate out. So one is the idea of mass high tech surveillance, which you're talking about. The other would be flock specifically. So I would differentiate from the many competitors that are coming into the space, Axon being one of the popular ones, because Axon is already a big company that provides like body cameras for police. So they're getting into the space too. So there are other companies are doing this. Flock in particular, from what I can tell reading online, has some problems. Um, so besides just the idea of mass surveillance, from what I've seen, Flock is pretty dishonest. And in fact, Oshkosh, Wisconsin City Council canceled a contract with them because they were lying to them. There was a meeting last week in Tennessee where a Flock representative was talking to the city council, just lying to them, and they called him out in the conference. And so, like, for example, as we saw, they say, well, they don't capture live stream. They do capture live stream, and they're starting to advertise that as a feature. So they say, oh, it only captures car information. No, because we have photos of flock cameras posted on jogging trails, on hiking trails, entrances to gun ranges, entrances to churches. So there's an honesty problem. They have a talking point PDF that's floating around that they give to police officers to say, here's how you address these things. And in that document, they say critics of Flock have pre-prepared scripts that they carefully follow. And I'm over here thinking, I've never seen a script. I don't know what you're talking about. But they use that as an excuse to say, hey, police, since they're using a script, you should use this script we're providing you to defend Flock cameras. So it's Flock as a company, I think, is not acting in good faith.
Well,
So
that alone, what you just said, is a concern about acting in good faith, right? Because the majority of the general public going in asking their city councils don't have the range of knowledge to prepare a script about the ins and outs of flock. I mean, we're literally just being introduced to it. So that is sort of dishonest from the get, as if every person coming to ask you about flock cameras is not genuinely asking as a concerned citizen in good faith. To assume that we're somehow some sort of organized monolith of information coming to attack it. I think that is sort of a corporate tactic lately too, right? Is frame the citizens as a problem and a menace to what we're trying to achieve, and it sort of puts you in a position as an elected official to not know who the bad guy is, if there is one, right? Or to
right, right,
assign a
right.
bad guy when there should never be one. And I think we're seeing a lot of that response and I think flood cameras are going to enhance that response. We saw it with protests and everything else, that your normal, average, everyday American citizen is being turned into some sort of malicious menace, because they have questions or they feel like their rights are not being respected. So let's talk a little bit more about the duties. We talked about this area. You've told us a little bit about the different types of cameras being used. Officer Van Houten, tell us a little bit about what is the plan in Beaumont, Southeast Texas, with these flock cameras. What's the goal? Is there a goal that's been stated? I can't hear him. Mm, I think we're gonna have issues with his sound. Um, I can't hear you, officer. I can't hear you. Um, okay, let's move to the next one, and maybe if your sound gets fixed, we can come back to that. Um, look in the private. Host muted you. Okay, let me text Tony. All right, try now. I'm going to keep us going, but I've texted him and let him know. Um, all right, so let's go to the next question. So we know that there's an issue with what these flock cameras are actually going after. We've seen news reports of it being abused, and when can you say something now? Let me see if I can hear you. No. When Officer Van Houten can get back on, maybe we can get some answers to some of those questions. Until then, let's talk about this a little bit. What
Sure.
is there any indication, Chris, that you've seen in the things that you've studied and read that these can prevent or solve crime? I mean, are we looking at real results here, or is it too early to tell?
There has been a little research on this topic, and so far the data seems to show that they don't lower crime, they don't prevent
Okay.
crime, they don't reduce crime. What they do is sometimes they help police officers solve crimes that have already happened. So there is a distinction there. Like if crime happens, they help, but they don't reduce crime.
I can see where a tool like this would be beneficial for cases of like human trafficking, drug trafficking, kidnapping, things of that nature. I think we could all see how that could be beneficial,
Yeah,
but a blank check is concerning to me, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what are
Well,
the restrictions that exist? Are there any?
there are no restrictions. So there's part of the issue is, first of all, let's be clear. Flock is a for-profit company. They're making money off this, so they
Right.
make money off selling a product, and that's the driving force. They don't care about safety; it's just
No.
money. They're a private company. As far as access, this is kind of the funny thing. They're a private company providing cameras primarily to law enforcement, but not only. So private individuals can get these cameras. You don't buy them; you rent them from Flock. For I think Beaumont's paying like $3,000 a year per camera or something like that. For new ones, the price reduces over time. But Lowe's, for example, has Flock cameras in their parking lot. Academy has Flock cameras in their parking lot. HOAs have them around town. So private entities, non-governmental entities, can have them as well. And I don't know the specifics of their architecture. It seems like all of that data goes into AWS, Amazon Web Services databases, where it gets fed into their system, which a person with a login can get in and search using various tools. They have tools. They continue to roll out new ones. I mentioned Nova and Freeform as two new ones. I don't know if there's different levels of subscription where you get more features or whatever. Um,
Like your Ring camera.
they actually integrate with Ring cameras.
Oh, okay. Well, there you
Yeah.
go.
So all of these data feeds come together, and one of the things we've seen is that law enforcement agencies will share with other law enforcement agencies. So local PDs will share with ICE, for example, and this all goes into, or well, it could go into fusion centers if you're familiar with what a fusion center is. Um, so all these law enforcement agencies share this stuff, and we've seen cases, for example, officer in Texas traced a woman to Illinois using flock cameras
Right.
for an abortion. So officers in Texas can search data on people in Massachusetts or Illinois or any other state. It doesn't seem to be restricted, but I have not used it personally. This is just what I've read, so I could be
Right.
wrong about that. There are questions of governance there, which again, if we step back and say Flock is one company, there are more companies,
Right.
so we should have some guidelines around this. That video Adam Schiff put up yesterday about this talked about that, which if we see Congress turn blue in November, we might see more regulation in this space from the coming Congress. I hope so, because I mean,
Well,
so
I mean, my question becomes when you say that it's linked, they can tap into Ring and everything else. Where is this data stored?
in Amazon Web Services.
So, I mean, who all can access it?
Well, whoever can log into Flock, or I think there's some concern about Amazon itself because, like, so Amazon owns Ring, and they have cooperated with law enforcement in the past to turn over videos. So the thing is, like, Amazon Web Services is just a cloud provider that lots and lots of applications and software companies use. So
Mhm.
it's not like Amazon specifically is getting into these videos. Flock is just using them as a platform. Like the U.S. government uses AWS for storage,
Mhm.
as well as like Microsoft has their cloud and things like that. So there's different technical pieces to this. I don't know the specifics of how Flock safeguards it, but based on what we've seen so far, it's once you can log into the Flock system and start searching, there's not a whole lot of walls that stop you from accessing
Right.
it.
Like I'm thinking of it as a subscription service even in my job, right? Like we can search certain databases. Once you have a login and your parameters are set, you go when you want and looking for what you want, as long as it's
Right.
within those parameters that you've paid for. But I do think it's concerning, like what you said about the officer who um tracked a woman to Illinois, and we've seen a couple other we've seen several reports over the past few weeks of officers abusing this system. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
fact that there's some accountability tells me there must be some restriction in how it can be used. But there's clearly not enough safeguards to prevent it, or we wouldn't be seeing so many officers in trouble for it.
Right.
And once it's abused, it's abused. You can't go back and undo that. So I think too about there was a man recently that was tracked down, I believe, or believed that his car was wrongly identified, and he got in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
trouble. And what I think about that is with these flock cameras, Texas already has an issue with private prisons and incentivizing charging and jailing people. I think this is going to criminalize a lot of people who haven't been criminals.
Yeah.
And my concern is, like, I remember one time as an educator when I was teaching, someone had gotten a seatbelt ticket and had the same name as me in the next town over, but it was the same county. They started coming to my house regularly to try to arrest me. I was lucky that they listened to me and didn't arrest me, but they
Mm-hmm.
came multiple times, and it was because of a mistake. And I was lucky they listened to me, but I thought if I had gotten arrested on my way to school, I'd have lost my job. Like there'd have been
Mm-hmm.
no turning back. It had already been done. And so that's kind of the thing that concerns me is I hear there's people getting in trouble if they abuse it, but there doesn't seem to be any way to prevent them from abusing it. And once someone is wrongfully arrested, the dominoes fall.
Right.
So, I'm
Right.
concerned about how that affects people.
For sure. And there has been a little work on trying to verify the accuracy of these cameras. So Flock claims 96% accuracy. There was an independent effort to see how accurate they are at actually telling you what the license plate is, and that effort was like 90%, so it was a 10% failure rate. There was a particular city, I believe in California, that found like a 70% failure rate approximately. Flock said that the cameras were installed too high, they were installed wrong, something like that. That's a pretty high failure rate. But it just begs the question of, you're presenting this data. People have a tendency to think, well, they see this data in the computer, it must be true. but it's not true. Those aren't right. And as you pointed out, there was a family in Colorado, Aurora, Colorado, that was pulled over incorrectly based on a license plate. Flock got the number wrong, and the kids were and the parents were put on the concrete with guns in their faces over that. Um, it's terrible, and of course mistakes are going to happen, but it's right now. Flock is not transparent in auditing their systems and providing data. And as I've said earlier, it's hard to trust them.
Right.
So
Right.
if there were a better system that were accurate, and we could say, well, independent parties have verified this is 98% accurate or whatever, fine, okay, that's a whole other conversation about mass surveillance.
Right.
But Flock, we don't know. I mean, it's they're acting like it's good data. It doesn't. It appears most of the time it's good, but what's the acceptable failure rate? And how much can you trust it? And on top of that, there's the whole issue of warrants, where you don't need a warrant to get this data. So there was that discussion on Legal Eagles video about the courts need to rule on this. They're just behind because this thing has happened so fast.
It
Like
did happen fast.
2 years ago, there was like 1,000 cameras across the U.S., and now we're at 130,000 cameras and growing. And
40% of our police force in this country use it
yeah,
already. Like it's fast. And I mean, technology is fast and that's great. We like progress and we like high speed progress, right? But this gets back into that question of just like with data centers and other industry, um, when you say something real quick, Officer Van Houten. Let's see if we can hear you. Can't hear you. I can see you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. No, I know. Um, uh, try jumping out and jump back in now that you're inside. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. Um, but that's kind of the issue, right? Is when we look at all of this, we look at the flock cameras. The growth is so fast. We've done nothing to regulate it, so we're not even learning about it before we're just releasing it out on the public, and that feels dangerous.
I will say I think in a sense, maybe it's good that it's so obvious and in our faces. Like you drive down the street, you see
Yeah.
this big pole with a camera on it, and they're everywhere. All of a
Yes.
sudden, the people are talking about it. So people are talking about it, and I've heard, I don't know if it's Axon or one of the competitors, but somebody was looking at having real small cameras that go in street lights so you don't notice them, and they're just hiding there. And so I think that would be worse if this got rolled out and it was hidden and we didn't know
Yeah.
and we're not paying attention. But
Yeah.
as it is, it's really obvious, and
Mhm.
people don't like it because it's really obvious. And maybe what's going to happen is as this continues to evolve over the next years, it'll become less obvious, less intrusive, but still present, and people will worry about it less. I mean, Flock is already on this damage control mission. They hired that PR company to try to help them out, and they released an apology video and all this kind of thing. So they know they're unpopular, having called people who don't like Flock terrorists. Um, and people are going to city council meetings and speaking up and trying to stop them. And cities are canceling contracts with them because they're expensive and they don't trust the company. So I think that this situation is going to evolve, and that's really like there's a whole discussion there of as this evolves, what do we do? I don't think it's going to go away. There's too much appetite
Mhm.
amongst law enforcement and government and private businesses to do this stuff. There's also a lot of appetite amongst the public to not have it. So we're
Right.
having this fight, and I think they're just going to make it less obvious so that people are less worried about it.
Yeah, well, I think it will be less obvious, but I do agree with you that it being so big and in our faces and so fast has led people to ask questions, has led people to ask questions. And so I think it will, if we vote in a way that will protect us, then we will see some regulation. But yeah, I agree with you. It's here to stay. It's here to stay. I don't see it going away. Let's talk about some of the things. Let's talk about some of the benefits. What are some of the things that we see we could gain from having flock systems. I mean, I was driving down the road the other day. I'm not sure we need that many that close together, but what do we gain? What can we gain as a society from using this technology? That might not be a good question for you. And Officer Van Houten's not with us. It can't hear him. Um, but I mean, okay, so I can see value in investigating crime or, stopping kidnapping or whatever. But that begs the question of how do you staff that? Do you have someone who sits and watch vlog cameras all day? Like what, how do those things, how does that work? How could you use it in real time to stop or prevent a crime? Is it possible to do that?
I was so they're working. I mean, we have the real time crime center here in Beaumont,
Hmm.
which I don't really know enough about to talk about. One of the things that they're working on is they acquired a company called Arrow, I think, that makes drones. So they have this idea of first responder drones. And what they're working on is you'll have the flock cameras watching everything. And when the AI that's watching the videos decides, hey, there's a situation going on, or if you have people watching it, they send a drone out to the situation. And the drone can have communication on it, is my understanding. Like an officer could talk to somebody using a speaker on the drone. Um, so there's situations like that. If there there's an emergency of some kind and you need a drone out
Right.
there, it can fly in a straight line 60 miles an hour across town and be there quick. So there's
Okay.
that whole bit. Um,
I'm going to share what Officer Van Houten has shared too. The police use them to investigate auto thefts, suspects that use vehicles during commission of violent crimes, and missing people that drive away. Example: someone that is going through a mental crisis or dementia. And I agree. I think for those types of issues, where you have someone in real time danger, that I can see the value in that. Um, I just my concern is that we don't have um, enough checks and balances, regulations, methods of prevention to stop them being potentially abused. Which, if it was like where we were, where there were 1,000 across the country, we would have time. But when we've got 40% of our police force in the nation using it already, and they're everywhere, it feels like we probably need to do something about that gap pretty quickly before it is abused.
Well, right, and when we see stuff like Operation Puppet Master up in Minnesota, which is where ICE was surveilling people who were involved in political activities that the government doesn't like, going to churches to identify everybody, going to their houses to intimidate them, all these kinds of things, then clearly they're going to use flock as part of that effort. And so
Right.
it's if the government is acting in good faith, which I think we can't presume that, then that's a whole conversation. But like we know they are going after people because of their political activities. And
Now, I will say personally, that does concern me, right? As a community organizer, trying to get people civically engaged. We have rallies, we have protests, we have public facing events. I don't break the law, but of course, it has concerned me that I could become a target with a flock camera. I want to mention real quick the officer said that they solved 300 crimes last year with flock cameras. So they do have value, and they know that some people will abuse the power. But Beaumont specifically does audits each month and has a policy and procedure for those that take advantage. So I think locally, right, we can make changes locally and ensure that we have some protections locally. I know specifically with Beaumont Police Department, every time we've worked with them, they've been really above board. So, yeah, I that's my experience. But I think that when we speak in broader terms, right? Like while we might be able to work something out with our local leadership, what does this mean nationally? Because we're not all just going to stay in our hometowns. Um, Officer Van Houten says they don't have staff watching them 24/7, but they don't have the manpower to do something like that. They use them on a need to know basis. For example, when a crime is committed, then use them to try to find out where suspects are or have been. And I can see where that would be beneficial. the question is going to come down to community trust in government officials and leadership, right? Can we trust our leadership and our officers and our local department to protect us in that way without invading our privacy and rights? That's what it'll boil down to.
And probably there may be other government agencies that have access to Beaumont's flock cameras that are going to
I
use
think
them in
Frisco
different ways.
does. I think Frisco does, or Terrell, somewhere else does. Yes.
Yeah, so Beaumont PD may be great. Other officers and other agencies, we don't know. But I'd
Right.
also throw out there the thing that it's hard to keep up with in our modern life, which is that everything is changing all the time. AI is developing on a daily basis, and
Mm-hmm.
so the state of flock cameras right now is not what it's going to be in 2 years. And so, like we see,
Right.
originally they were license plate readers. Then they start adding more features, more real time video, the new Condor cameras that track people as they walk by, so the camera can move. They added the sound tracking, where first it was gunshots, and then they're listening for voices of people in distress. There, that you could see on YouTube. There people have flock cameras, not by their choice, placed right outside their bedroom window, and so like, is it listening to what you're saying in there? It could. It's got a microphone on it. But I think
Yeah.
what they're one way they're going to approach this is, because you just can't have people watch these cameras all the time. It's not
Mm-hmm.
feasible. They're going to have AI do it. So the AI is going to watch, and it's going to say, oh, these people are doing something over here. A human needs to review it, or it'll come up with a summary of what it thinks is happening. It's in the summary. And then there's all sorts of things that could happen that we have to prepare for it. So it's like, yes, we may be having concerns about what exists right now, but it's building a foundation for something even bigger and more sophisticated to come in the next few years. And who knows who's going to be in charge of a government and what decisions they may make. So you're 4 or 5 years from now, you want to hand somebody this tool that's so powerful. And
I I think that is one of the short-sighted mistakes that we make as a nation. Um, the flock cameras in Beaumont are not able to track people, just take snapshots of vehicles. He knows people are scared of facial recognition, which is understandable, but Beaumont does not yet have that capability. So, um, we know that for locally, but I think we know that that's not necessarily the case in every space. And we've already talked about the fact that these things are pretty well connected. So whether or not Beaumont is recording, they might have access to other places that are anyway. But I think too, what you were talking about, once the thing is developed, the speed with technology, the speed at which it grows and changes is overwhelming. I mean, we've seen it just with AI over the past couple years, right? Where everybody's generating memes, and originally they all have seven-fingered hands, and now they're already starting to kind of, that's going away. It self corrects in that way pretty quickly, and depending on what the intent is, I think is where we have a danger. I don't think it's our local police that are necessarily like generally the problem with flock cameras. There will be individual officers who are, but the issue is our local elected officials need to ensure there are some safeguards and protections there so that we aren't made vulnerable to those kinds of abuses. And
well,
I'm not. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, there's also the consideration of budget, which is, um, again, like Flock is a private company, so they want to push this idea that like there's all these crimes and they're reducing crime, which they aren't, but like they're helping fight crime with cops, which gets back to this. Not to get off topic, but like, are there other things we could do with the budget which would improve the city and reduce crime that aren't, let's keep piling more and more budget and responsibilities onto police, because we
Right.
seem to give most of the money and power to police and expect them to do everything to keep order. And maybe there's other things we could do to take workload off the police to have better solutions to things. um, like some
So they
places
don't end up like teachers responsible for
for every right,
all of it with no real support to get that done.
right,
Right?
and
Because when the
so-
when the rubber meets the road, when it comes down to these things, community, they're going to be mad at the people who they can see. and the people they can see are the police. But it's not police setting the rules or parameters. And I think that's something we need to make sure community is aware of. Um, the issues with this, police will implement the policy they are given. But if we want policy, real protective policy, we've got to start going up the chain of command, city councils, county leadership, keep going and start talking to people that can make a difference, that can make it different for us and provide those protections. Because I would imagine police in their personal lives would want the same protections. They don't want a flock camera outside their bedroom window, right? None of us do. Officer Van Houten, if you can't see right now, he's asking you to do the mic test. See if your mic passed the mic test. And if so, then we can maybe get you back on. I can't hear you. Still can't hear you, which I hate because I know we need some information. Okay, so we talked about local law enforcement would have access to the flock data depending on what their subscription is. Federal government can tap into these, you think? State level?
Mm-hmm.
Marshals, FBI, Rangers, everybody has access, right? All right. Well, how long is data stored? And can it be used to reconstruct someone's movements over long periods of time?
So my understanding is yes, that it is used to reconstruct movements over periods of time. There's a question of how long. I've heard 30 days. I think they recently said they were going to reduce it to 7 days, depending on the subscription of the customer. I don't know the details, to be honest with you, but it's unclear, which is again a part of the issue with Flock. My concern, well, one of my many concerns is like this AI stuff that they have going on, where so a few examples of more interesting searches. They say they don't. Flock says that they do not track your journey. All they do is record moments in time when you pass a camera. But they have so many cameras that you can construct a journey, which is my understanding in legal terms, that's the mosaic idea, where if you collect enough data points about somebody, you can construct a bigger picture of their movements. And in court cases, that seems to be where a line is drawn between needing a warrant and not needing a warrant. So if you just go by a camera and it says you passed a camera at this point in time, the cops don't need a warrant for that. But if you get enough of these and you say, well, who went where, you need a warrant. That's my understanding of the law. So Flock has a thing called Caravan, where they can tell what cars are close to each other as they go by cameras in a pattern. So if you are driving with another vehicle, or you're being followed, that's their example. Some criminals following you around town, but you could be with a friend or whatever. They know that. They also know, for their freeform tool, you can go in and type on a prompt, like you're talking to Chat GPT, and say, "Hey, show me videos where a Latin man stood outside a Lowe's with a box of construction materials," and the AI will search through all the videos and find that and show it to you. Since they're collecting phone data, I would guess that if you have passengers in your car, it will start to associate that data.
I think we heard you. He's frozen now. Got your voice.
Can y'all hear me
it's
now?
not very clear, but I got your voice.
You heard?
Yes. Yes. Welcome.
No.
It's kind of in and out, but I can hear you. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes, that's better. That's it right there. All right.
I have tried for
So,
39 minutes, guys. I'm so sorry.
hey, look, you deserve an award for that because that is some stamina and persistence. Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to go back to a few things while we have you. Yeah.
I just wanted to tell you, I understand where a lot of the concerns are, especially because I wasn't always a police officer. I've been a police officer
Right.
now for about 9 years, but I do understand the concerns, and so I just want y'all to know about that.
Thank
Appreciate
you. I think we'll touch back on a few things now that we have you here that we were asking questions about before. Um, One of the things that you went out on right when we asked it was what, where are flock cameras in Southeast Texas being used, the purpose, and who makes that decision?
So I know at least 140 cameras in the city of Beaumont that the Beaumont Police Department are utilizing. I know that at least. As you mentioned, the private businesses that are able to use them as well. But we can't always keep exact track of those because sometimes um, that the lease of those cameras will expire. So it's kind of hard to gauge how many private businesses have them. But I know that we in Beaumont at the police department have at least 140 of them. They're being utilized mostly at intersections where vehicles are going to be more used. Uh, who makes them exactly? That's over my pay
Okay.
grade.
Over your pay grade. I think it's over most of ours is the issue. All right. Well, and so we talked a little bit about some of the abuses we've seen. We've talked about how we know there has to be some type of, some people must have policies because there are some officers being held accountable. We talked about having to speak to our elected leadership to get changes made or protections involved. So that's kind of where we've been. And then Chris was telling us a little bit about some of the stuff that they've seen lately with them. What was it we were just talking about before he came back on?
We were
Um,
talking about free form where you can use AI prompts to search what's the content of
oh,
videos,
okay.
and
Let's
then
pick back up there.
yeah, and then like their caravan thing that links people together and whatnot. So to add a bit into this, at risk of being tinfoil hatty, um, I think it's important to understand how Palantir works because Palantir is a large and growing IT provider for the U.S. government and other governments, Israel, Europe, Ukraine, etc. And one of their big products is about linking relationships between people and entities and things like that. So they have a graph or whatever, and they'll show, hey, this person or that person. Think of like your Facebook friend list, and there's like you are friends with that person and that person. So if you start having stuff like caravan technology with this flock idea, they say, hey, this person drives around with this other person near them a lot, or you're in the same car and both of you have your phones and the Bluetooth IDs go out, and the phone and the cameras pick that up, and suddenly we link these people over here. So there's this stuff may not be a big issue right now. I think it's a big issue, but again, I'm looking at a few years in the future as this technology develops, as we get more sophisticated cameras, more sophisticated signals intelligence, all this stuff happening. Where's this going? And who's going to be in charge? Again, like we change government leaders, we change political parties. If people think, well, it's great that the current administration is going after people that I don't like, well, what happens when things change and shoes on the other foot? So
Yeah.
that's
Well,
really
I think that is something I was going to say earlier. We've been very short sighted in how we apply laws lately, and we've turned so many people into threats and enemies just by their mere existence. Um, that now everything feels like an attack, like we're attacking, we're out to find somebody and get them in trouble. So these feel threatening because it feels like you're looking for someone to arrest,
yes,
right?
that's a
And,
great
and
point.
so
Great point.
it moves from protect and serve to surveil and question. And you feel like if I'm just going about my business, my ex has to drive this car, or my brother has to drive this car, and I have to drive this one, and we're traveling all these places and we're doing all these things together that does running errands, moving stuff, whatever. And as a community organizer, I'm traveling with the same people all the time, right? Does that automatically make me, is that a red flag that now I have to answer for myself when I'm just going about my business and doing my regular stuff? So I think those are the areas where we're going to see concerns is I, I don't feel as free if I'm being watched all the time, essentially. right?
Yeah, and as we have seen in the state of Texas, and
I think y'all both make a really good point. I was just gonna say, I think y'all
Oh,
make a really great point. National news, we're seeing where police officers are abusing the flock cameras, being held, the information audited, and they just filed against them and hold them accountable. That because I'm a law enforcement officer, I don't just side with every police officer. I do not do that. In fact, are abusing the, and I speak for agencies. We've seen a lot of things in the nation the past several years that's very concerning, even to me. But I know with our local, when these because of cameras, which so now it, I can see how that can be very. Um, I just know we're using the flock camera, and we're not using them to do those type of heinous things. We're not trying to target any kind of specific kind of person, race, gender. We're just going just.
well, I think that's refreshing to hear. I think that's something that the community is going to want to hear because we have seen an influx of flock cameras. At the same time, we see ICE coming into all our communities as well. So when you say that they're not using it to track people or racial profile, or those are things the community needs to know, because I think those are concerns that we all have. And I think we want to see some transparency. We want to be confident that we're safe traveling outside of our homes and the government's not tracking everything that we do.
I can't speak for ICE. I don't know what
Right.
they're
No, I
doing.
know. I know.
I personally have not looked at body. We're not looking at of people like we have seen nationally.
Right. That's good to know. Thank you for letting us know that. Um, do you know, we talked a little bit, Chris and I were talking a little bit about how long the data is stored. Do you have any idea about how long they store data in Beaumont?
We store data for 30 days unless we save it as evidence because it's linked to a crime.
Okay.
We are needing some 30.
Do you know if that if it's deleted from the system, or is that stored in a data center somewhere?
I honestly know. I just know I know if it's
Okay.
deleted or where it goes personally.
Okay. So we Chris, you've told us some things about how, they've gotten some license plate numbers wrong. We talked about people who've been wrongfully detained. And so what happens? Is there anything set up for when these systems are inaccurate? Are there consequences for a false match? What is there anything like that that exists? All right, tell us.
So that's a great point. I'm so glad y'all brought that up because I was on patrol a year ago. I patrolled for 7 years, and so I was kind of new to the flock, and I didn't get to use it for very long before I came out of patrol to do community relations. But license plate readers, sometimes they are wrong. I'll give you an example. Say there's a license plate 1234567, and it's a stolen car out of New York. If a Texas police officer is driving around and it sees a license plate that says 1234567, come up stolen, but underneath that stolen indicator, it's going to say this is a Mercedes Benz out of New York. So it's then the officer's responsibility to look at the little image that comes up on their computer and see, okay, does it say 1234567 York or Texas? Enter wrong state. So that way it's documented and it's updated so it doesn't keep making the mistake. So there is that. Sometimes I've seen where, say, maybe for a homicide and somebody else is driving a Ford Mustang or a Honda, and it flags the officer system and says, "Hey, that's a homicide suspect vehicle." Well, we don't want someone running around killing people, so that gives us, it's a person's friend, mom or dad, and so we still have that information free to go. So there are some. It's not always 100% accurate who's driving. We do have to verify the correct state that the vehicle was reported stolen. Say,
Okay.
okay, that's a stolen Texas plate, but it does show us the information, and we just have to check, and then we do have to update it if it's right or wrong.
Okay. Well, that I mean that is relying on human user information, right? They've got to go in and do that extra step. Um, so that makes
Yes.
sense. I know. I mean, humans make mistakes too, and so I mean, I know saying, "Well, you could wrongfully arrest someone," that happens. I was telling a story earlier about how it almost happened to me. Um, that stuff happens, but I think that's partly why people are because I think with the cameras everywhere, obviously, it can increase how often that can happen. And so I think, yeah, what we've sort of hit on today is there's got to be somewhere in there that we know it's here to stay. We know there are uses that are beneficial. As long as you can trust all the people using them, we should be fine. But because we can't always do that, we need our elected officials to really make some regulations and protections that ensure the people of this country that their rights are preserved. We don't give up all of our liberty seeking safety, right? Because that is concerning.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we talked about who owns and controls the information. Flock, we've got corporations. We don't know yet who all is going to house that and hold it in the end. I would assume at this point it's Flock, it's the company. They own the data. And so, that should be a concern to people as well, which we should see some regulations with AI data storage and technology there.
Absolutely.
So what do you suggest that citizens who are concerned or have questions, if they want to know more about this, how do they find that out? Where can they get the information they need?
You know,
Is there a contact?
knows that better. I just know from what I've used. He's done his research online, and
Yeah.
it's very impressive. The way I use it, but and the way I've used it is just the common thing I did was getting notified of stolen cars, and with that feature because it'll tell me, hey, a car just hit at. I'll use some Beaumont streets as example, say Delaware and Lucas. Tell me another update, and it's very cool. And so I know the direction these stolen cars are going. So I would go try to intercept those cars, and that was helpful and able to stop. We had a crew in Houston still TM, but because these flocks were giving us updates, we were able to find them, locate them, and work with another to stop them. And so that's what I've used them for. Used them for an older gentleman who had dementia and left where he, and so we knew the license plate that to figure out that he went to a whole nother city,
Oh wow.
but he was okay. But that was the experiences I've only had.
Yeah, and I
So
mean those are
say
real
probably
benefits,
go online.
right?
Chris is going to be the one to
Yeah, go on.
answer flock.com. I can experience it.
Yeah.
I do know that, and this is not really my answer. This is more of like that law answer. We don't really have an expectation of privacy when we go out into the public.
Right.
That's just unfortunately the world we currently live in. I'll tell you, cell phone. I guarantee you, these cell phones are probably.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not tracking, but I'm sure somebody is, and so that is kind of scary, kind of concerning. Uh, there has to be policies and procedures. We've got to hold accountable when they abuse these. I don't care who they are, with their time in prison. We we do have to figure that part out because I think there's more. The flaws in there are bad, but there is definitely a small percentage of people that are abusing those cameras, and we had to limit that, in my opinion.
I mean, I
I mean,
think
I
whether
think
we
whether
like
we
them
like
or not, they're going to be here. So yeah, I think that is something that everybody, regardless of what their relationship is with these, can agree on, is that if they're here, we need some protections and regulations. Um, so I think one thing people can likely do is go talk to your city council. That's going to be a good place to start. Ask questions there. And if they don't have the answers, they should be able to get them for you, for sure. What are some
Yeah.
places online, Chris, people can go find good information on flock cameras?
I mean, a Google search will show you all kinds of stuff, but there is one website, deflock.me, which is a crowdsourced website where people can input cameras when they see them. So you can go see where cameras are, and it's not all of them because we don't know where all of them are. But when people see them, they go add them to the map. And so we've logged. I think I saw 130 something. So that tracks what you're saying about 140 in Beaumont. There are apps on your phone that will help you. They'll like plan a driving route that minimizes flock cameras using that same data set. And then there's plenty of people on YouTube who hack into these things and talk about the details and the internals and how they work. And 404 Media has done a pretty good job of covering various news stories about flock cameras and what's going on with them. Again, it's an evolving situation, and I just want to reiterate one point because I looked into this about this idea that when we're in public, we don't have an expectation of privacy. That is true, but the courts have also drawn a distinction between like invasive data gathering, for lack of a better term. So, for example, there was a case where officers put a GPS tracker on a car and then watched where it went, and then busted the guy in a cabin in the woods in Wisconsin where the car went, and they did that without a warrant. And the court said that's too much. So it's not like you can have a camera over your shoulder recording everything you do when you're out in public. There are limits to how much the state can surveil you in public. It's just that at this point, all of this stuff has happened so fast. Not just Flock, but data centers, AI, Palantir. All this stuff is happening at the same time, and our court system, our political system, is too slow to
Yeah, it can't catch
respond.
up.
So it's an evolving.
That's why you're seeing so much community involvement, right? Is because we are part of the government too. That's
Mhm.
that's the beauty of America, is the people who live here are part of the government. So when the courts and our elected officials and all can't move quick enough, we get louder and ask more questions to increase it as a priority. You're not paying enough attention. And so
Mhm.
that's what people need to be doing now. If you have concerns or questions, you need to amplify those loudly so that people start speaking to it and make some adjustments that will protect people. I wanted to speak to the thing about public being in public as well. But did you have something real quick, Officer Van Houten? I didn't want to cut you
No,
off.
I was gonna say the everybody. I think
Yeah.
everybody wants to know, advancing at a very rapid pace. You see, I couldn't even access my mic, so it's going faster than me. But yes, and you had mentioned. Did you mention drones earlier?
Yeah.
I did the first responder drones, I think they call them.
So we're about to. I don't know much with you, but I know what we're planning on using them. I think for officer safety purposes. These drones are going to go out for a limit time. Hopefully, when it's just a high priority call, something very violent happening, and we can get those drones out before the officers get there. So that way, if someone does have, say, a firearm, we can tell that officer ahead of time, hey, behind the blue dumpster, behind you, there's a man with a rifle. Or say a violent act already happens and that actor is leaving, follow this vehicle in that area. The drone can follow that vehicle and give active updates to the officers responding. So hopefully we can stop that those are a couple everything you're saying, and I'm a citizen as well, and I want to know what's happening. I want to know as much as you do.
Yeah. And I think that, like the example you just gave, those are things we would like to see happen, right? Like we don't, when it's used, that's the difference. When it's used for public good, public welfare, protecting the public from violent crimes, I think everybody's fine with that. Speaking to the being in public and not having privacy, I think we know that. I think what we're talking about in this regard too is that the regulations, it's the difference between sharing a road with someone and them driving in your lane and trying to get in your car, right? Like we can share the space, but you need to give me some distance for my personal space and autonomy, right? And so it's that kind of difference. It's the difference between all up in my business and I know you're there, you know I'm there. Let's just go on about our day, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
you should know exactly what smooth.
exactly, exactly. I don't need you to know my plans before I know them. Um, okay, so I think that we've talked about residents need to get more involved and ask more questions. We've talked about the line. Is there anything that either of you would specifically like to add to the conversation that we didn't get a chance to cover or discuss?
I would just generally add, um, get involved at the local level in a general sense. Like this is decisions like flock cameras get made at city council.
Mhm.
And we citizens can go to city council and voice our opinions. And democracy is a participatory activity, and I encourage everybody to participate.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
I agree with you,
And you
Chris.
don't
Not
have to
enough
be well
people participate.
informed.
Not,
Yeah,
not enough people participate. Not enough people think in Beaumont an average of 10% of people vote, and that's not good. That's
we're
not
working
enough.
on it. We're working on it.
I know at
Yeah.
Beaumont we offer a free since Academy to one that a Jefferson County resident that's at least 1 night a week. You can go on texas.gov, Citizens Peace Academy, 1 night a week that you can give a couple hours to. You can see how we found to see hands-on how we work, including the flock and the real patrol and canine, and you can get a first-hand experience. And like I said, it's free. Chris said we just need to get more active in their local government. That's a very good start. You have a voice, and you need to speak and let.
Yes. And you don't have to go in with all the information, right? That's not the point. You don't need to go and educate city council. It may just be, I have questions about this. Can you answer them? And if they can't, then they need to go find those answers. So you don't have to go in saying, I know all this and I'm here to fight. It can just be, I don't understand what flock cameras are and why are we using them? And they can explain that to you. But showing up and connecting to your elected leadership is important every day, not just election day. So it's important to remember, as Chris was saying, democracy is not a spectator sport. You got to get involved and participate.
Yeah,
Officer Van Houten said we all got to get out and vote. We got to use our voices. So that's a good thing to remember. All right. Well, is there anything else anybody else would like to add? All right. I want to
I
thank you
just
both. I know
apologize.
we had some, it happens. Technology, as fast as it goes, we have to learn to adapt. So I want to thank you for continuing to try and then sharing your perspectives with us. I'm glad you got to join. Chris, I want to thank you too, of course, for bringing all the research and information that you had as well. So and Officer Van Houten, I want to thank you both for joining us, helping us unpack and most of us probably don't think about when we pass one of these cameras. And to everyone watching, public safety matters, and so do our rights. So, understanding the technology being used in our communities is where that conversation starts. So, if this conversation resonated with you or challenged you, please like and share. And be sure to subscribe and join us live every Thursday at 8 p.m. right here on Let's Talk Impact. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate you.